Daniel pressed his palms against his eyes, trying to push back the exhaustion that had become his constant companion. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. It was 5:30 in the morning and he'd been awake since 4, staring at the ceiling and running through his mental checklist for the day. Pack Tommy's lunch, sign the permission slip for the field trip, remember to buy milk, call his mother back. The list never ended. 3 years. It had been 3 years since the accident that took Rebecca away from them. 3 years since that rainy Tuesday evening, when a distracted driver ran a red light and changed everything. Tommy had been only 4 years old then, barely old enough to understand why his mother wasn't coming home anymore. Daniel dragged himself out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen. The coffee maker sputtered to life, filling the small space with the rich smell of dark roast. He leaned against the counter, watching the dark liquid drip into the pot, his mind already racing through the day ahead. He had a presentation at work at 10. Tommy had a doctor's appointment at 3. Somehow he needed to figure out dinner, help with homework, and get his son to bed at a reasonable hour. The bedroom door creaked open, and Tommy emerged, his brown hair sticking up in every direction, his dinosaur pajamas wrinkled from sleep. At 7 years old, he looked so much like Rebecca that sometimes it made Daniel's chest ache. The same wide brown eyes, the same small nose that crinkled when he smiled. Except Tommy didn't smile much anymore. "Morning, buddy," Daniel said, forcing brightness into his voice. "Ready for Saturday?" Tommy shrugged and climbed onto one of the kitchen chairs, his feet dangling well above the floor. He didn't say anything, just picked at a loose thread on his pajama sleeve. Daniel poured himself coffee and started pulling out cereal boxes. "What do you want for breakfast? We've got the chocolate ones you like, or those oat circles, or—" "I'm not hungry," Tommy said quietly. It was the same answer he'd given for the past 2 weeks. Daniel felt that familiar knot of worry tighten in his stomach. He'd gotten a call from Tommy's teacher, Mrs. Chen, just 3 days ago. She'd asked him to stay after pickup, and Daniel had known immediately that something was wrong. "Tommy's been very withdrawn lately," she'd said, her voice gentle but concerned. "During our family tree project, he got very quiet. The other children were excited, sharing stories about their parents, and Tommy just sat there with his paper blank. When I asked if he needed help, he said he didn't want to do it." Daniel had felt like he'd been punched in the gut. He'd tried so hard to be both parents to fill the impossible gap Rebecca had left behind. He worked from home 2 days a week so he could be there for pickup. He volunteered for field trips. He showed up to every soccer game, every school event, but he couldn't be a mother. He couldn't fill that space, no matter how hard he tried. Now, looking at his son picking at his pajamas, refusing breakfast, Daniel made a decision. "You know what? Let's go out for breakfast. That cafe down on Maple Street. The one with the big windows and the good pancakes." Tommy looked up, something flickering in his eyes. "The one we used to go to? With Mom?" Daniel's throat tightened. "Yeah, that one. We haven't been there in a while." "What do you say?" For the first time in days, Tommy nodded. "Okay." An hour later, they walked down Maple Street together, Tommy's small hand tucked into Daniel's larger one. The morning was crisp and clear, the kind of autumn day that made everything feel a little bit more hopeful. Leaves crunched under their feet in shades of red and gold. Other families were out too, walking dogs, pushing strollers, heading to the farmer's market 2 blocks over. The cafe sat on the corner, its big front windows reflecting the morning sun. Daniel could see people inside, the warm glow of lights, the steam rising from coffee cups. His hand hesitated on the door handle. They hadn't been here since before the accident. Rebecca had loved this place. She'd order the blueberry pancakes and read the newspaper while Tommy colored on the kids' menus they kept by the register. "Dad." Tommy was looking up at him, waiting. Daniel took a breath and pulled the door open. A bell chimed above their heads and the smell of coffee and fresh bread washed over them. The cafe looked exactly the same. Same black and white checkered floor, same vintage posters on the walls, same wooden tables and mismatched chairs that gave the place its charm. A hostess led them to a booth by the window, the vinyl seats squeaking as they slid in. Tommy immediately pressed his nose against the glass, watching people walk by outside. Daniel picked up the menu, though he already knew what he'd order. Some things didn't change. "Good morning." Daniel looked up to find a woman standing beside their table. a notepad in one hand and a warm smile on her face. She wore the cafe's standard uniform, a black shirt and apron, her dark curly hair pulled back in a ponytail. But it was her eyes that caught his attention. They were kind eyes, the kind that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. "Welcome to Maple Cafe. I'm Maya, and I'll be taking care of you today. Can I start you off with something to drink?" "Coffee, please." "Black," Daniel said. Maya turned to Tommy, who had stopped looking out the window and was now studying the paper placemat in front of him. She didn't rush him or speak down to him the way some adults did with children. Instead, she crouched down slightly, bringing herself to his eye level. "And what about you? What would you like to drink?" Tommy glanced at her, then quickly looked away. "Chocolate milk," he mumbled. "Excellent choice," Maya said, writing it down. "The chocolate milk here is really good. They use the good stuff, not the watery kind." She paused, tilting her head slightly. "You look like a pancake person to me. Am I right?" Despite himself, Tommy nodded. "I knew it. I can always tell. Do you like blueberries, or are you more of a chocolate chip guy?" "Blueberries," Tommy said, his voice a little stronger. "Perfect. And I'm going to guess you want extra whipped cream on top. Because why not, right? It's Saturday." For the first time in what felt like forever, Daniel saw the corner of Tommy's mouth lift in a small smile. It was brief, barely there, but it was real. Maya caught Daniel's eye and gave him a small nod as if to say she understood. Then she straightened up, tucking her notepad into her apron pocket. "I'll get those drinks right out for you. And those pancakes will be coming up soon." As she walked away, Daniel found himself watching her move through the cafe. She greeted other customers with the same genuine warmth, refilled coffee cups without being asked, and laughed with an older couple at a corner table. There was something about her presence that made the whole place feel friendlier, warmer. "Dad?" Daniel turned back to Tommy. "Yeah, buddy? Can we get whipped cream at home? Like in the can?" "Sure. We can pick some up after this." They sat in comfortable silence, Tommy coloring on the kids' menu that Maya had quietly placed on their table when she brought the drinks. Daniel sipped his coffee and found himself feeling more relaxed than he had in weeks. Maybe it was being out of the apartment. Maybe it was seeing Tommy smile, even if it was just for a second. The food arrived quickly, and Maya set Tommy's pancakes in front of him with a flourish. They were huge golden brown, studded with fat blueberries, and topped with a mountain of whipped cream that threatened to slide off the plate. "Whoa," Tommy breathed. "I told you," Maya said conspiratorially. "We don't mess around with the whipped cream here. Dig in before it melts." Tommy picked up his fork and took a bite. His eyes widened. "These are really good. The best in the neighborhood," Maya agreed. "And your omelet, sir. Extra cheese, just how you ordered it." As she moved to leave, Tommy suddenly spoke up. "What's your favorite thing here?" Maya turned back, surprised but pleased by the question. "My favorite? I really love the French toast on Sundays. They make it with thick bread and cinnamon, and it's just perfect. But honestly, I think the best thing here is the hot chocolate. They make it with real melted chocolate, not powder. It's amazing on cold days. Can I try that next time?" Tommy asked, looking at Daniel. "Next time?" Daniel repeated, caught off guard by his son's enthusiasm. "Yeah, can we come back?" Maya smiled. "You're welcome anytime. I work most weekends, so I'll probably see you around." She glanced at Daniel, then back to Tommy. "You make sure your dad brings you back, okay?" After she left, Daniel watched his son eat with more appetite than he'd shown in days. Tommy asked questions about the other items on the menu, wondered out loud if the cafe had been there a long time, and actually finished almost all of his pancakes. It was such a change from the quiet, withdrawn child of the past few weeks that Daniel felt a surge of hope mixed with sadness. One kind waitress, one good breakfast, and Tommy seemed a little bit more like himself, but Daniel knew it wouldn't last. They'd go home, fall back into their routine, and by Monday morning, Tommy would probably be quiet again, that shadow back in his eyes. Still, for this moment, watching his son scrape up the last bit of whipped cream, Daniel was grateful. When Maya brought the check, she also brought a small cookie wrapped in plastic. "For the road," she said to Tommy. "Chocolate chip. Freshly baked this morning." "Thank you," Tommy said, accepting it carefully. "You're very welcome. It was nice meeting you." Daniel left a generous tip and helped Tommy into his jacket. As they headed for the door, he noticed his son looking back over his shoulder. Maya was clearing their table, humming softly to herself. When she noticed Tommy watching, she gave him a little wave. Tommy waved back, then turned and took his father's hand. They walked home the long way, through the park where the leaves were falling like golden rain. Tommy was more talkative than he'd been in weeks, chattering about the pancakes, asking if they could go back next Saturday, wondering if Maya would remember them. Daniel let him talk, grateful to hear his son's voice filling the silence that had settled over their lives like dust. He didn't know why that particular cafe, that particular morning, had made such a difference. Maybe it was just getting out of the apartment. Maybe it was the change of scenery. Or maybe, Daniel thought, watching Tommy swing their joined hands as they walked. Maybe it was something else, something as simple as kindness from a stranger who took a moment to see his son, really see him and treat him like he mattered. That night, after dinner and bath time and 3 stories, Daniel tucked Tommy into bed. His son's eyes were already heavy with sleep, but he grabbed Daniel's hand before he could leave. "Dad?" "Yeah, buddy? Can we really go back next Saturday? To the café?" "If you want to." "I do." Tommy's voice was sleepy but certain. "I liked it there. I liked Maya. She was nice?" "She was nice," Daniel agreed, smoothing back his son's hair. "Get some sleep now, okay?" "Okay. Love you, Dad." "Love you too." Daniel stood in the doorway for a moment, watching his son drift off to sleep. For the first time in 3 years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. They'd find their way through this darkness, one small moment of kindness at a time. He pulled the door closed softly and walked to the living room, where the photo of Rebecca still sat on the mantel. She smiled out at him, frozen in time, forever young, forever missed. "He smiled today," Daniel whispered to the photo. Just for a second, but he smiled. "I thought you'd want to know." The apartment was quiet again, but somehow it felt a little less empty than it had that morning. The following Saturday couldn't come fast enough for Tommy. All week, he'd asked about it at least once a day. "Is it Saturday yet? How many more days until Saturday? We're still going to the cafe, right?" Daniel found himself looking forward to it too, though he couldn't quite explain why. Maybe it was just nice to have something to look forward to, some break in the routine that had become their life. Work, school pickup, homework, dinner, bedtime, repeat. The cafe had become this bright spot on the horizon, something Tommy actually seemed excited about. On Tuesday, Tommy's teacher stopped Daniel at pickup again, but this time her expression was different. She was smiling. "I wanted to let you know that Tommy participated in art class today," Mrs. Chen said. "He made a really beautiful drawing. He's been much more engaged this week. I don't know what changed, but keep doing whatever you're doing." Daniel didn't know what to say. All they'd done was go out for breakfast. How could one morning make such a difference? But it had. Tommy was talking more at dinner. He'd laughed at a cartoon on Wednesday evening. On Thursday, he'd actually asked a friend from school to come over and play. Small things, maybe, but to Daniel they felt like miracles. When Saturday morning finally arrived, Tommy was up before his alarm, already dressed and waiting by the door with his jacket on. "Buddy, it's 7 in the morning. The cafe doesn't even open until 8, Daniel said, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "I know, but we should leave early so we get a good table. What if it's crowded?" Daniel couldn't help but smile. Okay. Let me get some coffee in me first and then we'll go." They arrived at Maple Cafe at 8:15, just as Maya was unlocking the front door. She looked up, surprised, then broke into a warm smile when she saw them. "Well, good morning. You're my first customers of the day." She held the door open wide. "Come on in. Give me just 2 minutes to get the lights on and the coffee started, okay?" Tommy nodded eagerly and followed her inside. Daniel noticed his son watching Maya as she moved around the cafe, flipping on lights, adjusting chairs, checking that everything was ready. There was something methodical and careful about the way she worked, like she took pride in every small detail. "Same booth as last week?" Maya called over her shoulder. "Yes. Please," Tommy answered before Daniel could say anything. They settled into the booth by the window, and within minutes, Maya appeared with a coffee for Daniel and a chocolate milk for Tommy. She hadn't even asked what they wanted. She'd just remembered. "So," she said, pulling out her notepad, "are we doing blueberry pancakes again, or are we feeling adventurous today?" Tommy thought for a moment, his face serious. "Can I have the French toast? You said that was your favorite." Maya's eyes lit up. "You remembered?" "Yes, you absolutely can have the French toast. Excellent choice. It's Sunday's special, but I think we can make an exception for you. She winked at him and Tommy grinned. As the weeks went by, Saturday breakfast at Maple Café became their tradition. Week 2 turned into week 3, then 4. October slipped into November, and the leaves outside the cafe window changed from gold to bare branches. Through it all, they kept coming back. Maya always greeted them like old friends. She learned that Daniel took his coffee black but liked a splash of cream in his second cup. She discovered that Tommy loved asking questions about everything, from how the espresso machine worked to why the cafe had black and white tiles on the floor. She never seemed annoyed by his curiosity. Instead, she answered every question thoughtfully, often adding little details that made Tommy's eyes go wide with interest. "The tiles are original from 1952, she told him once. "This building used to be a soda fountain back then. If you look really close at that corner tile over there, you can see where someone carved their initials. I like to imagine who they were, you know? Maybe a couple on their first date, or best friends meeting up after school." Tommy had scrambled out of the booth to look at the tile, tracing the faded letters with his finger. Daniel watched the interaction, struck by how natural it all felt. Maya didn't talk down to Tommy or treat him like a little kid. She talked to him like a person, like his thoughts and questions mattered. In the 4th week, Maya brought Tommy a kid's activity book when things were slow. "I found this in the supply closet," she said. "It's got puzzles and mazes and stuff. Thought you might like it while you wait for your food." Tommy's face lit up. "Really? I can have it?" "It's all yours." While Tommy bent over the book, concentrating hard on a maze, Maya refilled Daniel's coffee and lingered for a moment. "He's a great kid," she said softly. "Thanks. He thinks you're pretty great, too." Daniel paused, then added, "He's been different since we started coming here. Happier." His teacher even noticed. Maya's expression softened. "Kids just need to know someone sees them, you know? That they matter." She glanced down at Tommy, still focused on his maze. "He's lucky to have you." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He didn't feel like Tommy was lucky. Most days he felt like he was barely keeping his head above water, failing at being both mother and father, never quite enough. "I'm trying," he said quietly. "I can tell. That's what counts." The next Saturday, something shifted. They'd finished breakfast and Daniel was paying the bill when Tommy suddenly tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, can I show Maya my drawing from school? The one Mrs. Chen liked?" Daniel had forgotten he'd even brought it. Tommy had insisted on carrying his backpack, which Daniel had thought was odd for a Saturday morning. Now he understood. His son pulled out a carefully folded piece of construction paper and smoothed it out on the table. It was a family drawing, the kind kids do in elementary school. Stick figures with big round heads and smiling faces. But Daniel's breath caught when he really looked at it. There were 3 figures. One tall with dark hair labeled Dad, one smaller with brown hair labeled Me, and one with curly dark hair in between them, wearing what looked like an apron labeled Maya. Maya had come over to look, and Daniel watched her face carefully. Would she be uncomfortable, weirded out? But her eyes just filled with tears and she pressed her hand to her mouth. "Tommy, this is beautiful," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Would it be okay if I kept this? I'd love to put it up in the back where the staff room is." Tommy nodded enthusiastically. "Really, you want to keep it?" "I'd be honored." After they left that day, Daniel finally asked the question he'd been avoiding. They were walking through the park and Tommy was running ahead, jumping in puddles left over from the morning rain. "Hey, buddy, can we talk for a minute?" Tommy came running back, breathless and happy. "What?" Daniel crouched down to his level. "That drawing you made, the one with Maya in it. Can you tell me about it?" Tommy's expression became serious, the way it did when he was thinking about something important. "Mrs. Chen said we should draw our family, so I drew us. But Maya's not, she's our friend, but she's not family." "Why not?" Tommy asked simply. Daniel didn't have an answer ready. "Well, because family is people who are related to you, people who live with you." Tommy was quiet for a moment, kicking at a pebble on the path. "I know Mom died. I remember her, Dad. I remember how she used to sing to me and how she smelled like flowers. I'm not trying to forget her." Daniel's eyes stung. "I know you're not, buddy. But I get sad sometimes because everyone else has a mom who comes to school events and makes their lunch and stuff. And I know you try really hard, Dad. You're really good at being a dad, but..." He trailed off, struggling to find the words. But what? But Maya makes me feel like maybe it's okay. Like maybe we can still be happy even though Mom's not here anymore. When she talks to me, I don't feel so sad. Is that bad? Daniel pulled his son into a hug, holding him tight. No, buddy. That's not bad at all. That night, after Tommy was asleep, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with a beer he wasn't really drinking, thinking about his son's words. The drawing was still in his mind. 3 stick figures holding hands, all smiling. He'd been so focused on surviving, on just getting through each day, that he hadn't really thought about what Tommy might need beyond the basics. Food, shelter, school, bedtime. Check, 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 check. But what about happiness? What about joy? What about feeling like the world was still a good place, even after it had taken so much away? The following Saturday, Daniel paid more attention. He watched the way Maya's face lit up when she saw them walk in. He noticed how she always had time for Tommy's questions, even when the cafe was busy. He saw the way she slipped Tommy an extra cookie when she thought Daniel wasn't looking, and how she never made a big deal about it. He also noticed other things. The way she treated the elderly man who came in every morning and always sat alone. She knew his name, asked about his daughter in California, remembered that he liked his oatmeal with extra brown sugar. She was patient with the young mother struggling with twins in a stroller, helping to carry the diaper bag to the table, and bringing crayons for the babies without being asked. Maya was just kind, genuinely naturally kind. It wasn't an act or something she did for tips. It was who she was. After they finished eating, Tommy asked if he could go look at the children's books on the shelf near the front. Maya had told him weeks ago that they were there for kids to read while their parents finished coffee. Daniel said yes, and for a moment he and Maya were alone at the table. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said before he could overthink it. "Of course. Why are you so good to him?" To us, Maya looked surprised by the question. She set down the coffee pot she'd been holding and slid into the booth across from him. For a moment she didn't say anything, just looked out the window at the street beyond. "I lost my mom when I was 8, she finally said. "Car accident, just like, well, like I'm guessing what happened to your wife based on things Tommy's mentioned." Daniel nodded, unable to speak. "And I remember how hard it was, how everyone looked at me with pity, or they didn't know what to say, so they said nothing. But there was this librarian at my school, Mrs. Roberts. She didn't treat me like I was broken. She just talked to me about books and asked what I thought about stories and made me feel normal, like I was still just a kid, not a tragedy." Maya's eyes met his. "I see that same sadness in Tommy sometimes. That same trying to be brave thing. And I guess I wanted to be for him what Mrs. Roberts was for me. Someone who makes things feel a little bit lighter." "You do," Daniel said. "You really do. He talks about you all week. Coming here is the highlight of his Saturday." "It's the highlight of mine too," Maya admitted. "I mean it. You two are my favorite customers." They sat there for a moment, something unspoken hanging in the air between them. Daniel wanted to say more, to tell her that she'd given them something he couldn't name, something precious. But Tommy came running back with a book about dinosaurs, wanting to show Maya a picture of a T-Rex, and the moment passed. As they were leaving, Tommy turned back to wave, like he always did. Maya waved back, and Daniel could have sworn he saw her wipe at her eyes. On the walk home, Tommy was quiet. Daniel glanced down at him, worried that something was wrong. "You okay, buddy?" Tommy nodded. Then so softly Daniel almost didn't hear it, he said, "I wish Maya could be with us all the time. Not just Saturdays." Daniel's heart clenched. He knew what his son was really saying. He knew what that drawing had meant, what all of this meant. His 7-year-old son, who'd lost so much already, was trying in his own innocent way to rebuild what they'd lost, to find a way to be a family again. And the most surprising part? Daniel realized he kinda wished for the same thing. He didn't say anything, just squeezed Tommy's hand a little tighter as they walked home through the cold November afternoon. Above them, the sky was gray with clouds, but somehow the day felt a little bit brighter than it had any right to be. The confession sat heavy in Daniel's chest all week. He couldn't stop thinking about what Tommy had said, about wishing Maya could be with them all the time. And if he was being honest with himself, really honest, Daniel had started looking forward to Saturday mornings for reasons that had nothing to do with pancakes. It was the way Maya laughed at his terrible dad jokes. The way she listened when he talked, really listened, not just waiting for her turn to speak. The way she looked in the morning light coming through the cafe windows, her hair escaping from her ponytail, her smile genuine and warm. But this was crazy, wasn't it? He barely knew her. They'd only ever talked in the cafe, surrounded by other people, over cups of coffee and breakfast plates. And yet somehow she'd become part of the rhythm of their lives, as essential as breathing. On Thursday evening, Daniel was cleaning up after dinner when Tommy appeared in the kitchen doorway, clutching something in his hands. "Dad, I need to show you something." Daniel dried his hands on a dish towel. "What's up?" Tommy held out a piece of paper. It was a homework assignment from school, another family project. This time they were supposed to write about what makes a family special. Daniel's stomach sank as he started reading Tommy's careful handwriting. A family is special because they care about each other. "My dad works really hard and makes me breakfast and helps with homework. He is always there when I need him. My friend Maya at the cafe makes me smile and asks about my day, and remembers what I like. She makes me feel happy. I think families are people who make you feel safe and loved, even if they don't live in your house." Daniel read it 3 times, his throat getting tighter with each pass. "Buddy, this is really good. Did Mrs. Chen say anything about it?" "She said it was very thoughtful. She asked if Maya was a relative, and I said no, just a friend." "But Dad," Tommy hesitated, chewing on his bottom lip. "Is it okay that I think of her like family, even though she's not?" Daniel sat down at the kitchen table and pulled Tommy onto his lap, even though his son was really getting too big for it. "You know what? I think family can be lots of different things. It's not just about who you're related to. It's about who shows up for you. Who cares about you? Who makes your life better just by being in it? So Maya could be family. If that's how you feel about her, then yeah, she could be." Tommy was quiet for a moment, then said, "Do you think she thinks of us like family too?" "I don't know, buddy, but I think she cares about us a lot." That Saturday morning felt different. Daniel took extra care getting ready, then felt ridiculous for doing it. He was just going to the cafe, same as always, but his hands were shaky as he buttoned his shirt, and he changed twice before settling on a dark blue sweater Tommy said made him look nice. When they arrived at Maple Cafe, Maya greeted them with her usual warm smile, but Daniel thought he saw something flicker in her eyes when she looked at him. Something he couldn't quite name. They ordered their usual and Maya brought it out herself instead of having one of the other servers do it. She lingered by their table, refilling Daniel's coffee even though it was still mostly full. "So I have something to tell you guys," she said, a hint of nervousness in her voice. "Today's my last Saturday working here." Tommy's face fell. "What? Why? Are you leaving?" No, Maya said quickly. "I'm not leaving the cafe. I'm just switching to weekday shifts, Monday through Friday starting next week." Daniel felt something sink in his chest. Saturdays were their day, their tradition. Without Maya, would it even be the same? "But we won't see you anymore," Tommy said, his voice small. Maya crouched down beside their booth, eye level with Tommy. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. I was thinking, maybe we could still hang out sometimes. Not here, but like at the park or something, if that's okay with your dad?" She looked up at Daniel, and he saw vulnerability in her eyes that took his breath away. She was nervous, he realized. Actually nervous about asking them to spend time with her outside of work. "We'd like that," Daniel heard himself say. "We'd really like that." Maya's face broke into a relieved smile. "Yeah? Okay, good, that's really good." She stood up, smoothing her apron. "I finish at 3 today. If you're not busy, maybe we could walk through the park. The weather's supposed to be nice, and that's how it started." That afternoon they met Maya at the park entrance, and she'd changed out of her work uniform into jeans and a green jacket. Her hair was down, falling in loose curls around her shoulders. Daniel had never seen her outside of work before, and it struck him how young she looked. How pretty. Tommy ran ahead to the playground, and Daniel and Maya walked slowly behind him, close enough to watch but giving him space to play. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. It felt strange, Daniel thought, to be together without the structure of the cafe around them. No menus to look at, no coffee to refill, no other customers providing background noise. "Thank you for this," Maya finally said, "for being okay with it. I wasn't sure if it was weird asking to see you guys outside of work." "It's not weird," Daniel said. "Tommy's been hoping for something like this, actually. He talks about you all the time." "Just Tommy?" Daniel glanced at her, caught off guard by the question and the directness in her eyes. "No, not just Tommy." They found a bench and sat down watching Tommy climb on the jungle gym. The park was busy with families enjoying the unusually warm December day. Dogs chased frisbees. Kids shrieked with laughter. The world felt alive and full of possibility. "Can I tell you something?" Maya said after a while. "Of course. I've been working at that cafe for 3 years. In that time I've met hundreds, maybe thousands of customers. Most of them blur together, you know. Nice people, but forgettable. But you two, from that very first morning, you were different." "Different how?" Maya took a breath. "I saw this little boy who was trying so hard to be brave, and this dad who was trying so hard to be enough. And I wanted to help somehow. Even if it was just making sure the pancakes had extra whipped cream." She smiled, but her eyes were serious. "But then something happened. Somewhere along the way, Saturdays became the best part of my week. I'd look forward to it all week long. Seeing what Tommy would ask about, hearing about his school projects, talking with you about life and work and random things. It became the thing I looked forward to most." Daniel's heart was hammering. "Maya, wait, let me finish. I need to say this." She turned to face him fully. "I know it's probably too soon. I know you lost your wife and you're still figuring everything out. But I need you to know that this matters to me. You and Tommy matter to me, more than just as customers or even as friends. And I understand if that's too much or too fast or too complicated. I just couldn't keep pretending I only care about you guys in a casual way." Daniel stared at her, stunned by her honesty, by the raw emotion in her voice. 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. It was too soon. What would people think? What about Rebecca? But underneath all of that was something simpler, something true. He was tired of being alone, tired of carrying everything by himself, tired of pretending he was okay when he was barely holding it together most days. And Maya, this woman who'd appeared in their lives like an unexpected gift, made him feel something he thought he'd never feel again. Hope. "It's not too much," he said quietly. "I've been thinking about you too, more than I probably should, more than I thought I could after everything. After Rebecca," Maya said gently. "You can say her name. I'm not trying to replace her, Daniel. I could never do that. But maybe there's room for something new, something different." Before Daniel could answer, Tommy came running over, breathless and excited. "Dad, Maya, come see, there's a dog doing tricks." They followed Tommy to where a woman was working with a border collie, teaching it to jump through a hoop. Tommy was fascinated, asking the owner questions about how she trained the dog, what commands it knew, whether all dogs could learn tricks like that. Maya caught Daniel's eye over Tommy's head and smiled. The conversation could wait. They had time. Over the next few weeks, their meetings became regular. Maya would finish work and meet them at the park, or they'd go to the library together, or walk through the downtown area looking at shop windows decorated for the holidays. Tommy was thriving with the extra attention, but it was more than that. The three of them fit together in a way that felt natural, unforced. Maya learned about Rebecca not from Daniel telling her in one big, heavy conversation, but in small pieces. A story about how Rebecca had insisted on getting a real Christmas tree every year, even though the needles drove Daniel crazy. The way she'd sing off-key in the car and not care who heard. How she'd wanted to be a teacher but had been working on her certification when the accident happened. In return, Maya shared her own stories. Growing up with a single father after her mother's death. Working her way through community college while supporting herself. Her dream of maybe opening her own cafe someday, a place where people felt welcomed and cared for. One evening, about 3 weeks after that first walk in the park, Daniel invited Maya over for dinner. It felt like a big step, having her in their home, their private space. But Tommy had been begging for it, and honestly, Daniel wanted it too. Maya arrived with homemade cookies and a children's book she'd found at a used bookstore. "I saw this and thought of you," she told Tommy, handing it to him. It was about dinosaurs, naturally. Dinner was simple, just spaghetti and salad, but Maya praised it like he'd cooked something fancy. She helped clear the table, and when Daniel started washing dishes, she picked up a towel and dried without being asked. They worked side by side in comfortable silence while Tommy played in the living room. "This is nice," Maya said softly. "Being here. Feeling like part of your routine." "You are part of our routine," Daniel said. "You have been for a while now." After dinner, they watched a movie together, the three of them crowded on the couch. Tommy sat between them, but halfway through he shifted so his head was on Maya's shoulder. Daniel watched her hand come up automatically to stroke his hair, gentle and motherly, and something in his chest cracked open. When Tommy started yawning, Maya stood to leave. "I should get going. It's late." At the door, she turned back. "Thank you for tonight, for letting me be part of this." "Thank you for wanting to be part of it," Daniel said. They stood there for a moment, close enough that Daniel could smell her perfume, something light and floral. He wanted to kiss her. The wanting was so strong it surprised him. But he didn't, not yet. There was still so much to figure out, so much to process. As if reading his mind, Maya smiled. "We're taking this slow, right? No rush." "No rush," he agreed. But as he watched her walk down the hallway to the elevator, Daniel knew with absolute certainty that this was happening. Whatever this was between them, it was real and it was growing. And for the first time since Rebecca died, he wasn't afraid of what came next. That night, he stood in the doorway of Tommy's room watching his son sleep. The stuffed dinosaur Maya had given him weeks ago was clutched in his arms. On the nightstand was the book she'd brought tonight, already marked with a bookmark halfway through. Daniel thought about Rebecca, about the life they'd planned together that would never happen. He thought about grief and guilt and whether it was okay to be happy again. And then he thought about Maya's laugh, about Tommy's smile, about feeling like maybe, just maybe, they were becoming whole again. "I hope this is okay," he whispered into the darkness, talking to Rebecca, to himself, to the universe. "I hope you understand." The apartment was quiet, but somehow Daniel felt at peace. Christmas lights were going up all over the neighborhood, and Tommy had become obsessed with looking at them. Every evening after dinner, he'd press his nose to the window, watching the neighbors string colored bulbs along their porches and wrap trees in white twinkle lights. "Can we put up lights too?" he asked one night. Daniel looked at the boxes in the hall closet, the ones he'd shoved to the back 3 years ago and hadn't touched since. Rebecca had loved Christmas. She'd start decorating the day after Thanksgiving, playing carols on repeat until Daniel threatened to hide the speaker. The thought of opening those boxes, of seeing her handwriting on the labels, of pulling out ornaments they'd collected together over the years, made his chest tight. "Maybe," he said, which was what he always said when he meant no but didn't want to disappoint his son. Tommy's face fell, but he didn't push. He'd learned not to push about things like this. 2 days later, Maya came over after work, as she'd started doing a few times a week. She'd changed into comfortable clothes and brought takeout Chinese food, claiming she was too tired to watch Daniel cook. They ate at the kitchen table while Tommy told her about his day, about the science experiment they'd done with vinegar and baking soda, about how his friend Lucas had lost another tooth. After dinner, while Daniel was cleaning up, he heard Maya and Tommy talking in the living room. He couldn't make out the words, but Tommy's voice sounded excited. When he walked in, they both looked up with matching guilty expressions. "What's going on?" "Nothing," Tommy said quickly, which immediately made Daniel suspicious. Maya bit her lip, fighting a smile. "Okay, so Tommy was just telling me that you guys don't have any Christmas decorations up yet. And I was thinking, if it's okay with you, maybe I could help. I love decorating for Christmas." Daniel felt his defenses go up immediately. "We don't really do much for Christmas anymore." "Why not?" Maya asked gently. "Because Rebecca isn't here. Because the last time we decorated, she was alive. Because opening those boxes feels like opening a wound that's barely healed." "We just don't," he said, more sharply than he intended. Maya didn't flinch. "Okay, that's okay. I just thought it might be nice, but if you're not ready, that's completely fine." Tommy looked between them, his expression uncertain. Daniel hated that look, hated being the one who caused it. He took a breath, forcing himself to calm down. "I'm sorry. That came out wrong. It's just complicated." "I understand," Maya said, and the thing was, Daniel believed she did. She'd lost her mother. She knew about grief and how it could ambush you when you least expected it. "We don't have to talk about it." But later, after Tommy was in bed and they were sitting on the couch with mugs of tea, Daniel found himself talking about it anyway. "Rebecca loved Christmas," he said quietly. "She'd go completely overboard with decorations. We had this ridiculous fake tree that was way too big for our old apartment, and she insisted we needed it because real trees made her sneeze. She had specific ornaments that had to go in specific places, and if I tried to help, she'd rearrange everything after I went to bed." Maya smiled. "She sounds wonderful." She was. And after she died, I couldn't do it. Couldn't put up the tree. Couldn't hang the stockings. It felt wrong without her. So I packed everything away and told myself maybe next year. Then next year came and went, and it was the same thing. And Tommy's never said much about it. But I know he notices. I know he sees other kids' houses with lights and decorations, and we have nothing. Maya was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? After my mom died, my dad didn't celebrate my birthday for 2 years. She'd always made a big deal about birthdays, baking cakes from scratch, inviting all my friends over. And without her, Dad just couldn't do it. So he didn't. What changed? My 3rd birthday without her, I told him it was okay to be happy sometimes, that Mom would want us to be happy. I was only 11, but I understood that we were both stuck. And I think he needed to hear that from me, needed permission to move forward. She looked at Daniel. Maybe Tommy needs to hear that from you, that it's okay to celebrate things again, that having Christmas doesn't mean forgetting Rebecca. Daniel felt the truth of her words settle over him. How many times had he held back, afraid that being happy would somehow dishonor Rebecca's memory? How many moments had Tommy missed out on because Daniel couldn't let go? I don't know if I can do it, he admitted. You don't have to do it alone, Maya said softly. I'm here. If you want help, I'm here. The next Saturday, Daniel pulled the boxes out of the closet. His hands shook as he opened the first one, but Maya was there beside him, steady and patient. Tommy sat on the floor, eyes wide with wonder as they unpacked ornaments he barely remembered. There was the glass ball with their wedding date etched on it. The clay handprint Tommy had made when he was 2. The ridiculous singing Santa that played the same annoying song on repeat. Each item was a memory, and some of them hurt to hold. But Maya didn't rush him. When he had to stop and take a breath, she just waited. When a particular ornament made him smile despite the pain, she smiled too. Mom made this, Tommy said, holding up a crooked felt snowman with button eyes. I remember. I was little and she let me glue the buttons. It's perfect, Maya said. Should we hang it on the tree? They didn't have a tree yet, but that afternoon the 3 of them went to a tree lot and picked one out together. Tommy ran between the rows, arguing the merits of each one. Too tall, too short.
Not full enough.
This one's perfect. No, wait, that one's better. They finally agreed on a 6-footer that fit perfectly in the corner of the living room. The lot attendant helped Daniel strap it to the top of his car. And Tommy talked the whole way home about where they'd put the star, whether they should use colored lights or white ones, if they could make hot chocolate while they decorated. That evening, with Christmas music playing softly in the background, they transformed the apartment. Maya proved to be an expert decorator, somehow making everything look effortless and beautiful. She showed Tommy how to space ornaments evenly, let him put the special ones in places of honor, and didn't criticize when he hung 5 ornaments all in the same spot because he liked them best. Daniel found himself laughing, actually laughing as they worked. Maya told stories about disastrous Christmas decorating attempts from her own childhood. Tommy made up songs about each ornament, and slowly, the apartment came alive with color and light and warmth. When they were almost done, Maya pulled out the ornament with Rebecca's wedding date on it. She held it carefully, reverently. Where should this go? She asked Daniel. He took it from her, feeling the smooth glass under his fingers. Front and center, he said, where we can see it. He hung it on a branch right at eye level, and for a moment the 3 of them stood there looking at it. She's still part of this, Maya said quietly. She always will be. Tommy slipped his hand into Daniel's. I miss her. Me too, buddy. Every day. But it's okay to be happy too, right? Mom would want us to be happy. Daniel looked down at his son, this wise little person who'd somehow understood what Daniel had been struggling with for 3 years. Yeah, she would. She definitely would. Over the next few weeks, something shifted in Daniel. It was like a door he'd kept firmly closed had finally opened, letting light and air back into his life. He and Maya fell into an easy rhythm. She'd come over for dinner several nights a week. They'd cook together, clean up together, help Tommy with homework together. It felt natural, like they'd been doing it for years instead of weeks. Daniel's parents came to visit in mid-December, and he'd been nervous about introducing them to Maya. What would they think? Would they feel like he was replacing Rebecca? But his mother took one look at Maya playing with Tommy on the floor and pulled Daniel aside. She's good for you, she said simply. Good for both of you. Mom, it's complicated. Rebecca, would want you to be happy. You think I don't know my own daughter-in-law? That girl loved you more than anything, and she loved Tommy. She wouldn't want you to spend the rest of your life alone and sad. His mother squeezed his hand. It's okay to move forward, sweetheart. It doesn't mean moving away from her memory. His father was quieter about it, but that evening, Daniel found him in the kitchen with Maya, talking about her dreams of opening a cafe. The fact that his dad was engaging with her at all, asking questions about her life, her plans, spoke volumes. But even with everyone's blessing, Daniel still struggled with guilt. It would hit him at unexpected moments. He'd be laughing at something Maya said, and suddenly he'd remember laughing with Rebecca. He'd reach for Maya's hand and guilt would flood through him. Was this okay? Was he moving too fast? What kind of person moved on after only 3 years? One night, he lay awake long after Maya had gone home and Tommy was asleep. The guilt was eating at him, a constant weight in his chest. Finally, he got up and went to the small box he kept in his nightstand. Rebecca's jewelry, her wedding ring, the watch she'd worn every day. At the bottom was a letter she'd written him for their 5th anniversary, just 6 months before she died. He hadn't read it in 2 years. His hands shook as he unfolded the paper, seeing her handwriting so familiar it made his throat close up. My dearest Daniel, it began. 5 years ago I married my best friend and every day since has been a gift. You make me laugh when I want to cry. You hold me when I'm scared. You dance with me in the kitchen even though you have 2 left feet. You're the best man I know and I'm so grateful you chose me. Daniel had to stop reading, tears blurring the words, but he forced himself to continue. I hope we have 50 more years together. I hope we grow old and gray and argue about whose turn it is to take out the trash. But if something ever happens to me, if I'm not there to grow old with you, I need you to promise me something. Promise me you'll be happy. Promise me you won't close yourself off from love. You have so much love to give, Daniel, and the world needs it. Tommy needs it, and someday maybe someone else will need it too. If that happens, if you find someone who makes you smile again, don't feel guilty. Love isn't a limited resource. You can love me and still love again. You can honor my memory and still build a new life. Please promise me you'll try. The letter went on, but Daniel couldn't see through his tears. He clutched the paper to his chest, Rebecca's words washing over him like absolution. She'd known. Somehow she'd known exactly what he'd need to hear. The next day was Sunday and Daniel hadn't planned anything, but he woke up with a clarity he hadn't felt in months. He called Maya. Hey, are you busy today? Not really, why? There's somewhere I want to take you. Somewhere important. An hour later, they stood at Rebecca's grave. Tommy was with Daniel's parents for the day, so it was just the 2 of them. Maya hung back, giving him space, but Daniel reached for her hand. I want you to meet her, he said. They stood in front of the simple headstone and Daniel talked to Rebecca for the first time in months. He told her about Maya, about how scared he'd been, about the guilt that had been eating him alive. He told her about Tommy's drawing, about Christmas decorations, about feeling like maybe they were going to be okay after all. I found her letter, he said, his voice breaking, the one from our anniversary. And she gave me permission, Maya. She told me it was okay to love again, that I could honor her memory and still build a new life. Maya was crying too, silent tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Daniel said to the headstone. Thank you for loving me enough to want me to be happy, even without you.